Growing up, I was the shy one in school that never spoke. I relied on my brother, who was 3 years older than me, to help me gain more friends. I was never brave enough to open up and start friendships all by myself, but my brother sort of pushed me out of my comfort zone and made me do it all on my own. I remember specifically being a freshman in high school. It was my first year at a new school, and he was a senior. I would always try and walk with him or talk to him in the hallways, and I felt as though he would ignore me and shoo me away. I remember being super upset all the time because I felt lonely and I felt friendless. I always seemed like I was left out and that I never belonged, but when in reality I never tried to fit in or gain new friends. Also, something I did quite frequently was write in a journal. I would write about my days and everything I did. I had many rough days, but there were always good days that followed behind. Felt like a mountain or a roller coaster that went up and down all of the time. I wrote about things that happened at school and even times when I was ticked at my parents or my friends. It was a way for me to demonstrate my anger on paper. It sort of reminded me a little bit about the series, The Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Greg Heffley was a shy boy who entered school very soft-spoken and not confident in himself. He seemed to get picked on at home and was the odd guy out. He eventually becomes the guy that tries to make everyone jealous of the things that he does. He gains a great friend and wants to be the cool kid. Me, having two younger siblings, they would come home from school talking about this series all the time, which interests me to read it. This series is written and illustrated by Jeff Kinney, who didn't even want to be a children's book author, but instead wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist. Well, obviously that fell through and he began working on this book. It took him 8 years. This series has been included on USA Today, Wall Street Journal, and Publishers Weekly. It is a New York Times bestseller and has won awards such as Children's Choice Book Awards and different Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. This series is written in diary format, in which makes it seem like the audience is reading from Greg's perspective. He begins in the 7th grade and faces many obstacles that kids that age currently face, like, do I belong? Is that a popular clothing brand that everyone wants? Can I have that? The characters in this book are Greg, Raleigh Jefferson, who is Greg's very best friend, Greg's parents, and his siblings. My favorite Diary of a Wimpy Kid book would have to be the first one that I stated, and then the second one would have to be The Ugly Truth. This one talks about how Greg and the Heffley boys have to learn responsibility and how to live on their own while their mother goes back to college. He has to learn how to do everything on his own without his mother being there to practically do that all for him. It's a challenge, and Greg is very aware of the difficulties of living practically on his own. He faces some challenges and oopsies throughout this book. It is my favorite because there was a time in my life where I had to begin learning that independent responsibility. I couldn't rely on my mother or my father to help me with certain things. Responsibility is definitely a hard thing to learn, especially when you are used to the everyday same routine. The Diary of a Wimpy Kid series teaches kids life lessons on things they can go through in the certain grades. To this day, every now and then I will look at my diary and laugh back at some of the things that I went through. Diaries are good for children to express their feelings and their emotions. This is one thing I will never forget, and I'm sure Greg won't forget either. Cheers to a fabulous series of children's books. This series will definitely be enforced in my future classroom, due to it teaching fabulous life lessons. There is a movie that came out in 2010 in which I felt didn't do my brain justice. It is a great movie, but it doesn't do justice to these great books. While reading, I discovered themes such as responsibility, humor, and the gaining of friendships. These books will definitely help students connect with their present life and help them in making different connections.